Well, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. We've got the whole day through. That's not the words, but
I know. I mean, that's our words.
That's our words.
So that's trademarked now. Nobody else
So
can take
you and
it.
I both did something separately, but I feel it was,
Together.
Our souls were together.
Our souls were
we
together.
both saw that beautiful movie, The Little Mermaid.
The Little Mermaid. It was so
good.
Like, I cried probably
Same.
75% of the time.
Aquafina was so funny Scuttle.
Scuttle. Oh my gosh.
Oh my God. When she turned around, when Sebastian was like, "Are you listening?" And she turned around and went, "Yes."
And their little rap, yes. Yes. And I guess I kind of missed the memo that Lin-Manuel Miranda was even
also writing
a part of it.
I know.
But you could, the second I heard Sebastian, I was like, that's David.
Yep,
that's David. And I was like, and I could hear just a little bit. Sometimes he would go a little bit outside of the Jamaican accent. And I was like, there he is. But the whole thing, Halle Bailey was fantastic.
Amazing.
Just her
part of your world, I got chills.
Oh, I mean, I was sobbing. I was just sobbing. At one point, I'm like, I saw it in 3D. And so my glasses are getting fogged up. It was so, I can't even imagine not seeing it in 3D. You have to go back.
Oh, I have to go back and see it in 3D.
It's so, just the fish coming kind of out at you. It wasn't in your face. It was perfect.
Oh, amazing.
It was so good. And literally at the end of it, a couple people started clapping and they're like, "Oh, I'm not really sure." And then everybody was like, "Oh, we're doing this?" Yes. And so the entire theater clapped because it was just so good. And just the messaging, they really honed in the whole bringing two worlds together. I mean, Javier Bardem, are you serious? There's so many amazing people in it. I had the best time. So go see it, people. It's really good.
Absolutely. I agree. Well, I'm really excited about our guest today. Are you?
So excited. Yeah. Love this person so much. I mean, Todd and her have been friends for a while, so that's great. But now she's my friend too. And I don't know. I just had so much fun talking to her.
Yeah, she's hilarious and she's got such a great perspective. Do you want to tell everybody about her?
Yes, I will. So, Tony Award nominee Elle Morgan Lee is an American actress and storyteller. She recently made history as the first openly transgender actor to receive a Tony Award nomination for her standout work in A Strange Loop. That performance also garnered her an Anthony Award for Best Featured Performance and a Drama League Distinguished Performance Award nomination. With over 20 years of off-Broadway, regional, and both national and international tours, some of Elle Morgan's other notable work includes portraying artist Lily Elbe in the stage adaptation of the novel The Danish Girl being developed in London, and A Strange Loop off-Broadway at Playwrights Horizons, where she received an Obie Award and the distinction of being the first openly transgender actor to originate a role in a Pulitzer Prize-winning piece of theater. A recipient of the Mark O'Donnell Prize, Elle Morgan is dedicated to championing stories centering the voices of women on both stage and screen. In the recording studio, Elle Morgan can be heard reading Hurt People, an essay written by LGBTQ+ advocate Laverne Cox for Tarana Burke's and Brene Brown's anthology, You Are Your Best Thing, Vulnerability, Shame, Resilience, and the Black Experience. So without further ado, I give you Elle Morgan Lee. Okay, well, good afternoon. Elle Morgan Lee, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Fabulous.
We are great. We are so happy to have you on the program. How's your day?
Well, it's still just getting started for the most part. I'm trying to get things situated here, hoping that we sound okay.
Oh, yeah. We're all trying to get situated. I'm not sure we really got there, but, we'll figure it out as we go.
Fake it till you make it, y'all.
Yeah, this is a journey. So...
Well, we're just going to go ahead and get right started here. So we know you are no stranger to the spotlight, but for our listeners, can you please tell us a little bit about your upbringing, where you grew up, and what brought you to where you are today?
Oh, wow. The whole history. I was born and raised in the Maryland, D.C. area, graduated from high school, went to college in Philadelphia, moved to New York, and started trying to pound the pavement, as they say. And 20 years later, finally got to Broadway. And so that's where I am. I mean, this last year has been sort of mind-blowing in a lot of ways and quite complex, but has had some of the highest crazy highs with the Tony nomination and all that stuff kind of going through. It feels weird to talk about it yourself, but that was great. And then now I am on the recovery spot and sort of seeing what happens next.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Well, congrats on the Tony nomination, by the way. That is just like...
We'll get to that later too, but yes, we are so excited for you.
Why is it weird to talk about it yourself?
I'm not that girl that's like, oh, well, I'm Elle Morgan. Here I am. I've won this. Don't you want to know me? Like, I'm not that girl. And so it's like actually very awkward for me to talk about like some of the cool things that have happened because to me, it sounds a little like conceited. But I think that's just also because we are trained not to fluff our own feathers or not to feel proud of the things we've done or places that we've gotten. So it's something that sort of I'm always sort of working through. It's funny you say you are no stranger to the spotlight, but there is a part of me that is like deathly afraid of the spotlight at the same time. It's like what we do. I love creating art in ways that are exciting and like, new and engaging, but at the same time, I'm a bit of an introvert. So it's like I like even in my concert, I had a concert very recently and like at the end of the show, I get very uncomfortable just standing in front of the microphone in front of an audience because it doesn't feel natural to me. And the very last two songs of the show, actually, I started it and was like, ugh, and I walked away from the microphone and like I got the video and like legit, you just sort of see me leave the microphone and then just step into this space where like half of my body is lit, my face is no longer lit, but I actually got to sing because it was about making music with these people on stage and having that sort of spiritual experience of singing that I think some of us really find and love. And it wasn't about like doing a show as much as sharing this art with these people. And so it didn't, while I probably won't share that video anywhere because it looks crazy with my whole face in the dark.
You're like Phantom of the Opera.
Like, well, there are her breasts and there's the bottom of the dress. Like, there's no face.
Could be anybody.
It could be like an artistic expression. But I was like, that was such a very real, like, this is Elle Morgan. Like, the light finds a way of finding me, but I'm not always in search of it.
Oh, I love that. That's actually very beautiful. I'm always intrigued by people that go into the arts that are introverts because I just can't imagine the anxiety and like I love a microphone. I cannot sing. So God saved y'all from that situation, but I'm sure it's got to be an interesting battle. But when did you know you wanted to pursue a career in the arts?
When I learned that there was a possibility. Because I didn't grow up thinking that it was a real job. It was something that I did and I've been doing since I was as early as being able to talk. So when I found out that there was a school where I could focus on that, which was high school, I went to Duke Ellington in DC for the first 2 years of high school. I was excited about that because before that, I had just been ready to go to like a Georgetown prep situation. And then they were like, there's an art school. And I went, oh, well, I need to audition for that. And so once I found out that that was possible, then it was end of the game.
Yeah. So you kind of share that with Todd. Todd also went to an arts high school.
We did. We're a different breed.
Yes.
Kids.
Well, in a good way. I said that too quickly.
In a good way. Exactly. Well, listen, did you always know that you wanted to be on Broadway specifically, or did you see your artistic expression going in a different direction?
Oh, I always certainly wanted to be on Broadway. In particular, I think it's interesting. The relationship with Broadway shifted over the years. So, right out of school, there was a Broadway or bust situation. It was like the only thing I wanted. Many kids graduate from college and we are just like, so confident and full of ourselves.
I'm ready.
I'm in New York. And of course I'm going to be on Broadway. Where else would I go? And it's
you
like,
just stand there and they wait for somebody to pull you inside.
Like, boo, like you're going to audition and you might not book it. and then you get accustomed to the idea that you're probably not going to book Broadway.
Exactly.
Oh.
And I didn't get to that place. I knew that the right thing had not come along or the right opportunity had not come along. For me, it's interesting because the day of my Broadway debut, I sat in my dressing room and like I was so, I mean, I'm emotional anyway, but I was so emotional and like extra emotional that everything made sense to me. It was like you had to get to this point to have your Broadway debut. And for me, there was this element of people did not know how to take me before transition, before like people just sort of didn't see me clearly because quite frankly, I wasn't showing them my full true self. And so it made perfect sense that when I started telling the truth to the world, that I was then received by it. Like there was something really interesting in that. Like when I was honest with the world about who I am, people were then able to clearly see me. Now, that's not to say that they understand everything or they're getting things right, but I think that the first steps towards a better understanding started then. So it made sense that for me, like 15 years or so of pounding the pavement, like certainly I had been building and going in and out. I wasn't, I was not that girl that was like, I'm auditioning every day for 15 years. Like I wasn't that girl and I've never been. But at the same time, it's like, of course, I was always working on craft and working on self. And it's one of those like testaments to like the more you know yourself, the more you're able to tell stories. And so like when I was honest with the world began to see me and it made sense that, of course, that's when Broadway happened.
Yeah. Well, that's I think that's so beautiful because I think it applies to a lot of things in life. Like people are trying to kind of fake it, not being their genuine selves. And then they're like, why isn't this working? And it's like,
right.
Well, maybe you need to kind of look within.
Yeah.
But as we talked about, you were nominated for a Tony, which is absolutely amazing, for a leading role in the musical A Strange Loop. So congrats again on that.
It's for a featured role in A Strange Loop.
Oh, okay. A featured.
Not quite the leading Tony nomination.
Okay, all right. Well, I think that's the same thing. So, and this was on your Broadway debut. Yeah. So when asked in an interview on MSNBC what that meant to you, your response was, my only mission is to be the hero that I needed to see. Can you elaborate more on that for us?
Sometimes I say pretty things. I legit will like listen to interviews and be like, oh, wow, that was really nicely put. Like, good job. Knowing
Who is that lady?
In my mind, I was like, oh, God, how do I answer this question? Like, don't sound crazy. I mean, it ultimately is just growing up. I knew how I felt inside. My journey is sort of wild because it's like I always knew about myself as a child, but the idea that I was having these thoughts was ridiculous to me. And I was very like, that's not realistic. That's not possible. Never going to happen. So just tuck that away and get used to what is. Which is like such a really like oppressive and like such an oppressive place to think as a child.
Yeah.
But I think it was just, I was very reality based in my, like, I only believe what I can see. And so I never saw examples of me, and I never saw examples of people who sort of were told this and then knew that they were this. I never saw that as a child. And so I grew up watching the Tonys and watching all these things, but there was no representation of me anywhere there. And so I got lost in the dream of all of these women in the space who were getting to perform and getting to do things. I got, Wizard of Oz would come on every year, and I got lost in the joy of the idea of playing Dorothy one day. That ain't gonna happen, but it's one of those things where I got lost in those fantasies and in those dreams. And so getting to a point where I started to get a bit of a platform and people were asking those kinds of questions, the like point of it all started to become really, I just want to be that example for someone else. The person that I didn't see, I want to be that person for them because they need to know that it's possible. Whoever she is out there, and that could be one person, that could be 50 people, that could be however many people. I want them to know that it is possible, that you already know who you are.
Oof.
That's beautiful. See, that was another beautiful thing that you just said. I don't even know if you were like, don't sound crazy.
I just go on rants.
That's perfect. That's what this is for.
Exactly. We're going to have you elaborate a little bit more on what you were just discussing. We talk a lot on this show about trauma and identity and overcoming hardship.
Light topics.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, light topics. Exactly. As a child, when did you know that you were actually, quote unquote, different? And did you always know who you were inside? Or did it become clearer once you were able to fully live authentically as yourself in transition?
That's a complex question. Well, I mean, even today I am different. Even inside of all of my intersections, I'm still different. I never get to feel just like the average normal. I never, because like even it's like you come to this like I'm a Black trans woman and I feel good in my skin. I feel like I'm free and I'm able to like live and exist like freely for myself, at least. Not the world around us has a whole lot of issues, but in my own truth, I can be happy with that. And even inside of my own community, I'm like, I am a little odd. Like I'm a little different. My just the fact that like I'm not striving for some of the things that so many of the other girls seem to be striving for. Not all, but I think we keep seeing a sort of a same narrative over and over again. And like I challenge that in a lot of ways, which I don't necessarily want to talk about those ways just because that's a whole nother conversation. But it's just, I'm not in a box. I've never been in a box. But I say that I had like little breadcrumbs always out there to pick up. I just didn't quite see them. I kept walking past them or around them.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I just wanted to ask this question because I remember before you transitioned, we had a conversation at Dallas Barbecue, and you told me, you were like, I think next year, yeah, that old place with an extra
big
shot.
Conversations happen.
Exactly. You said something very poignant. You said, I'm going to share something with you. I think I'm going to let her out. And I said, you remember this conversation?
I don't remember that conversation, but I remember that language.
Yeah, you said, I'm going to let her out. And I said, what do you mean? You said, there is another part of me that I have been hiding from the world that I think I'm going to just let. I don't know what it means. I don't know where it's going. So I just wanted to know from there to now. That was a while ago. But I just wanted to know, do you feel like more authentically?
7-8 years ago.
Yeah, it was. It was, yeah.
Because I remember that exact language because there was this idea I was feeling like I wasn't free. Like I was feeling very like things in my life just were not working out, be it relationships, be it like career, be it just things were not gelling. And I was like, what is going on? And I started doing photography really like actively and was finding such voice in the photography work. And the thing that was beautiful about it is that I was able to like talk to the people that I was shooting and help them to find like the most grounded sort of true self without the expectations of the world being on their shoulders. Like that was one of the things I would actually ask them. I'd say, I mean, I asked you this, Todd. It's like one of the things I'd say, who are you when you strip away what the world thinks you are? When you strip away all the stress, all the expectations, all the assumptions, I want to take pictures of that human who's there at the end of all that, when it's just you by yourself. That's who I want to find. I thought like the work and the art that was coming out of those sessions felt so honest and felt so beautiful. And then I started going, wait a minute, ask yourself the same question. Like, who are you when you feel you're most powerful, when you feel you're most authentic, when you feel you're most real? Who is that? And I realized that there were like moments along the way over the years where I really had tapped into a sort of more, what's the way to word that? I tapped into a more, I don't want to say feminine presenting because what is that? But I tapped into a space where I was allowing myself to like dress a different way or present in a different way, sort of privately. And like when I was in those moments, I felt sort of the most like I was not acting. And I was like, there's something to this idea of like pulling her out and tucking her away again. Like putting her out for this, if it's an event or something I need to do, I can like pull her out for that and then I can tuck her back away again. And I was like, why do I keep tucking her away though if I feel really comfortable? Why is it that I feel like that's not true? So I thought that there was just this 20% of myself that I was not allowing to be free. And so I was like, it was as if it was a bird in a cage. I was like, I'm just going to let her out of the cage and just live freely. And I don't know what that means or what that looks like, but I'm just going to allow myself to just be. And I don't know what that means, but we'll see. And once I did, I then realized that I had actually been living on 20%. The very thing I was running away from was the thing that gave me wings.
Wow.
It's like allowing myself to just be, because even it's interesting because I think of like those moments I would, if I thought about how that looked in terms of clothing, it was like the highest of heels, like the most makeup, just as like slutty as I could possibly look. Just this regular like Halloween girl, like summer moment. And like, it's so funny because I think about that and I'm like, girl, like you really just like, you needed to like let go, because to get me in a pair of heels now is like,
you're over.
I'm wearing Uggs like year round. I'm wearing flats through the entire Tony season. I was wearing flats, underdresses, like nobody knew. Like, it's like the stuff I went through. I'm like, you needed to like stretch that band as far as it could go to the other side to like allow it to spring back and find yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. You were wearing flats under that Christian Siriano dress?
Oh, I had tennis shoes on under that Christian Siriano.
Oh my God. You're my hero.
I had rainbow, sparkly Betsy Johnson tennis shoes on.
Well, at least they were sparkly. So there's that.
sparkly.
So if anybody asked, you're like, look at these.
You were like, I am going to be comfortable tonight.
Yeah.
There's a picture of me with my dress and the shoes showing.
And the shoes.
Oh, that's awesome. I have to find that picture. I mean, you need to at any point possibly run away if you have to. So like the tennis shoes are a good way to get, the paparazzi off you or whatever.
Well, my thought was, if for some reason this dress just keeps going, number one, that gown was so huge,
gorgeous.
And I kept thinking it will be just my luck. I am a bit of a klutz and like I have to be careful because all I could see was me like rolling down the and people being like, oh, well, there she goes. There's that trans girl sticking out on the red carpet. Just
everybody
ABC
else is
News,
like,
they're interviewing people, and you see me rolling behind
Oh, you would have made it look good either way. But, I kind of want to know, like, when did you feel as a child or was it like kind of adolescence? Like, when did you start to feel like you were not in necessarily the body that you wanted to be in?
So I never had the wrong body feel.
Okay.
As a kid, I knew it's so interesting because we are taught boys are this, girls are this. Like we're taught very clear lines. There was something about, I didn't think about, it's interesting. I never thought about the body element as a child. I just knew that I wasn't a boy.
Mm-hmm.
And so there were moments that I had forgotten, quite frankly, until like after transition, when it's like something started to get unlocked about your past. It's like as if you like start to walk on the right journey, all of a sudden you start remembering things that like, oh my God, along the way, all the things you could have remembered that would have helped you throughout. But I remember being like 6 years old, like waking up in the middle of the night, looking up at the like ceiling in my room and just sobbing, saying, if I woke up and I was a girl, everything would be better. Everything would be okay. Because I knew I just knew that people didn't see me every day. And what they were seeing, I felt like was sort of a facade in some ways. And I felt like I was acting.
Wait, how old were you when you felt that way?
Like 6. I mean, this was probably like 6, 5, 6, 7, that area.
So you knew.
Yeah. But like I tucked it away. And I feel like I had been performing the role of a boy for so many years. And like, I think I got so accustomed to what that was that I just sort of went, well, I guess this is what it is. I never felt like even when I, came to talking about things like sexuality and things, it was assumed that I was gay. So I just took it because it was like, I guess that's what I have to be. Mm-hmm. Because it was like, it was never like, this is me. It was like, well, I guess that's what I have to be because that makes sense with, I guess, like, this is what it is. At that point, I had been sort of tucked away the idea that I could be trans for so long that like I didn't even know that word then. So like at that point, I didn't really meet someone who was trans until I had graduated from college and was in New York City and like started singing backup for a trans singer-songwriter. And like I met her and was like mesmerized. And I knew that number one, I was mesmerized because the music was exceptional. But I knew that there was something deeper about her that I couldn't put my finger on. And like, she was in a place in her transition that was like very much about like getting a boob job and getting all these sort of like, sort of medical affirming surgeries. And like, I didn't connect to those at that point in my life. And so the only narrative about trans people at that point that I had seen, and not from her, but just when I started to open my eyes and look around and start to find examples of trans people all of a sudden, the only narrative I saw was people who were depressed, people who felt like they were in the wrong bodies, people who felt suicidal, people who had really, really extreme versions of trauma built specifically around gender. And I didn't feel those things because for what I felt, I was happy. I just didn't feel like I was honest. It's like I felt like my ceiling of happiness had a limit, and that's kind of where I was. And so I was okay with it because I've been living on that 20%. And so it's when I started to meet people. It's interesting. When I started to meet people who were actually non-binary folks, that cracked me open because these were humans who were asking questions about gender that I'd never heard before. And they were asking questions that I was like, well, that's weird. I'm not going to that's crazy. I'm not going to think that. But at the same time, I was like, but maybe I should pay attention to these questions because they're interesting. And like, why are we not all asking ourselves some of these questions? Like, would they not just support ourselves?
In our day, we weren't allowed
we
to ask
couldn't.
those questions.
Yeah.
No.
They didn't
I don't
make any
even-
sense.
I don't even remember it ever.
Like having a gender conversation?
Binary ever being like
Oh my God,
in
never.
anybody's vocabulary.
The word gender was not even really used like that.
Yeah.
Like it's like these are not things that like I had access to or we had access to in that way. So meeting non-binary people, that sort of cracked me open and made me ask some questions of myself, like deeper questions. I always say it's as if there was like my whole life, there was a door in front of me with lights flashing underneath it. And when I met non-binary people and then started to ask myself questions about gender and then said, okay, something's different. This is around the time, Todd, that I was like, I need to let her out the cage. I don't know who she is. I'm going to let her out. That's when I say I opened the door and like stepped inside of that room for the first time and then realized there was a lot of unpacking that needed to be done. In my journey, I initially thought that I was non-binary because these questions made sense and I didn't feel depressed and suicidal. So this must be the case. And there goes all that unpacking. So once I started unpacking and looking at things, it was like, oh, no, sweetie, you're a girl. Like you're actually just a girl. You're just like kind of like a boring girl. It's really like not like you're kind of an old fashioned kind of boring girl. And that's okay. And you don't have to feel extremely depressed or suicidal or all these things that society wants everyone to believe that trans people are. You don't have to be that to be trans. And so for me at that point, I was like, well, then you know what? I'm in my 30s. Like, if I'm going to do this, then this needs to be about love. We keep putting out this hashtag trans is beautiful. And we keep saying all these things. And my thought was, well, what does that look like? My transition to me is now really about learning to love and embrace the fullness of who you are. And in that way, everybody is transitioning, quite frankly, because we're all daily trying to figure out what it means to love ourselves and what it means to embrace and be centered in who we are. We're all trying to do that. And so what does that look like?
Oh my
For
gosh, I
sure.
have so many goosebumps. That's so like, I don't know, very poignant. I mean, I think and it's eye-opening. It's almost like you went towards the non-binary because it felt like, I think, less of a box, like that whole thing. And then it's kind of like, but I kind of do know who I am.
I'm like, but I am in a box.
But I am in a box. So I need to like make a little hole to breathe out of the box. But I think that you made a really good point that we all are kind of transitioning in a way. And I think it's giving people an ability to, a lot of younger people, especially this new generation, to just kind of like buck the system and be like, you can't tell me who I am. And that's like what we need right now.
Mm-hmm.
So when you decided to transition, were your family and friends accepting of when you decided to do that? And did anyone surprise you kind of negatively or positively with their reactions?
Oh, it was all, for the most part, a positive response for me, which I'm very thankful for. Some of the people who were the closest to me on the friend side said, it's interesting, some of my friends from college, they were like, it's interesting for you to say that because we kind of always saw you as a girl. Like, and I had like some relationships with men who were straight men a couple of them who actually said something very similar. And like I'd had some very interesting sort of awkward relationships with straight men where like they treated me the same as they treated the rest of the girls in their lives before I was open about things. And like one of them in particular was like, well, now I understand why I've always felt the way I felt with you. Like I've always felt like you were one of the girls anyway. Like there isn't such a change for me. You are, starting to dress differently or starting to look differently, but the spirit has always been the same. And so I think it was the most surprising thing for me, I guess, might have been when I had to tell my mom, of course. That was a time. And she took some time to come around, as moms do. And it was never, I will say this, it was never coming around to accept. It was coming around to actively start to understand.
To process, probably.
To process, exactly. When things like name changes and that kind of stuff come up, when it's your mom, like she knows the child she had and put all those thoughts and things into as you grew up. And, I started transitioning in my 30s. So for her, it was like, oh, now you want me to like
now
warning? Now warning? It's like now I'm supposed to. So it's taken her a little bit of time, and I find it like it's brought us closer over the years. It's brought us like much closer. We were close growing up, but there was a period in my 20s, which I feel like a lot of people experience this. There was a period sort of in my 20s when we started to like separate a bit more. The more I started getting into myself, I sort of moved away from the parental relationship, and transition has really, our conversations are different. She has different fears for me now, of course, than she ever did. It is very different for a mom when she's concerned about her daughter who's living alone in the city. And like all of those things, like sort of, we've had conversations about privilege and what that looks like and like what male privilege is as opposed to what it feels like to not have that. Yeah, it's been really supportive for the most part. I think that there are friendships and such that have fallen or faded away, which is sad and that hurts. But at the same time, relationships sometimes are for seasons. And I also understand that like some of these people didn't sign up for a girlfriend. Some of these people didn't sign up for, there are some girls in my life that sort of just faded away. And I realized like one of my friends, I was out with two girls, and one of them started getting really weird with me in this bar because there was a guy in the bar that sent a drink to a table for me.
She got jealous.
Girl.
I don't think that she was ready for that because it's not what she was used to with us. And our other friend texted me and was like, girl, you're okay. Feel good about the drink. Feel good about you. She just is not ready yet to know that she has a new girlfriend. And like, girls can be catty. Like, it can be a thing.
Yeah, welcome to this.
Yeah.
It's a Thunderdome.
And I said to my other friend, I was like, the thing that you don't understand, though, is that guy we're sitting here at this lounge or whatever. We're having drinks. We're laughing. We're having a good time. This guy that she had been talking about sent a drink to me. What you don't actually understand, though, is it's not as simple for me as it is for you to just accept that drink and go, oh, well, no, I got it. Now we're just open to possibilities. That's not my journey. Actually, our world has not evolved yet enough for me to get to have that kind of freedom of knowing that. Instead, I'm now thinking, oh God, wait, does he know? If he doesn't know, is he going to be like aggressive with me? Will he be violent with me? If this person finds out that I'm trans or knows that I'm trans somehow, is he going to be the one who attacks me or takes me out of the world? Like there's things that like are really kind of dire and not great that go into the processing of even a first meeting with a guy. There's a reason why when I meet men now, I think all women sort of are constantly sort of afraid of physical violence with men. And I think when you add the layer of being trans on top of it, it is heightened even more so. There's a reason. I shouldn't be in a world where I meet a guy and he says hello, and I have to wonder in my mind if he'll kill me. Like literally that extreme because of the numbers that we see and because of what's happening. And it's not always, I guess I can say this. I mean, I've had moments when I have had sort of violent things happen to me since transition. I've had two different instances of things happening to me. And neither of these instances were moments when the guy didn't know or the guy was somehow being quote unquote tricked or fooled. No, he knew everything because I'm not someone who meets people without disclosing. I'm going to let you know right away because I don't want to waste my time with you if you're violent, if you have something going on. Like, I don't want to deal with that. I'm too old for that. And so for me, it's like, I want you to be comfortable with who you are before I'm going to let you into my space. And so with both of those instances, like, they knew. There was no, it was, I believe, perhaps about substances or something that they might have been on, or things that might have been going on outside that after the fact, I can think about now and go, maybe that's what this was. But there really is no excuse for me having been attacked.
You don't think it was rooted in bigotry?
What do you mean?
The attacks, like when someone was violent with you, do you think it was their own stuff? Do you think it was rooted, because you said that they knew? So if they knew, where was that coming from? Was it because they were on drugs or on something else, or they just...
I mean, I do think it was a combination of like societal, like what happens if.
Oh.
These were both instances that were in my home. Like, these are both instances that were like in my space. These were dates. These were these were situations where like the person, for all intents and purposes, should have been okay.
Yeah. I mean, you think part of it, and sorry if this sounds, I don't know, ignorant, always learning lessons, but do you think any part of it is ever, oh, well, she was a man at one point, so like she can handle it or something like that?
Oh, like, that's interesting. So what I will say to that, I was never a man. And so I was always a trans girl, just in the experience. But how you just said that is exactly how I think some of these men think, and how some of society makes their minds think. And so society puts this idea of, if I'm attracted to her, does that make me gay? If I'm attracted to her, does that somehow make me queer in some way or something? As opposed to, she's a girl and I like girls. Yeah. And so it doesn't really, I feel like it's also just so much simpler than people make it.
Yeah.
With nuance. I am not a trans girl that's like, I am exactly like a cis woman. How dare you? Like, I don't say that because I'm not. Like, my journey has not been the same as a woman who is cis. Greatly because in some ways, because I'm not cis. So I think these guys, a lot of them, I think, or at least the people that I have dealt with, I think they are more concerned about how they might look or feel in society and what their bros might think of them, and like what they're, I mean, I could do all sorts of like blaming of like self, being like, well, look, I shouldn't have been hanging out with Trade anyway. I should not, I'm too over that. I'm not like, this random neighborhood boy life is not what I should be dealing with at this point in my life. But like, a girl has needs. And so, but what she doesn't expect is that then he's going to be violent.
Yeah.
That's unacceptable.
What she doesn't expect is that now she's going to have to experience something that could be like, well, it's not even could be, it is traumatic, because like one of these people, quite frankly, this happened sort of early transition and I sort of blocked it out. I do a good job of that. I realize that about, like, I do a good job of like putting things aside and then compartmentalizing them and putting them way back in the brain and blocking them out. And then recently, in the past like 6 months or so, I see him every day. He's like on my block every day. I think he's probably like a dealer or something. That's what I've sort of gathered by how I'm seeing him and sort of who's around him and what's happening. He does not remember me, possibly because this was early transition and I have evolved a bit, but like he doesn't remember me. I certainly remember him. And because the first time I saw him, I froze. Like, I felt like an immediate, like, oh my God. Like, I felt like I was back to that night.
Oh my God.
I remembered that it had happened, but I think I had just tucked the feeling away. It was a lot lighter to me after a couple years mentally than when I ran into him. And I'm like, oh God, I feel like I'm a victim. Like, I feel like this was more traumatic for me than I actually realized it was. And it took me, the fact that I literally see him every day, it took that. I think the universe is fantastic in how it takes care of us sometimes, because it actually let me process that this man is holding such a power lock on me from what he did, and he doesn't even remember me. So I mean nothing to him. I was literally a night for him that, didn't go the way he expected, that he wanted it to. And then he did something he shouldn't have done, and he ran out. And I was nothing to him, really. I didn't mean anything to him. And so my processing then became, why am I letting a human who I mean nothing to hold this lock on top of me? Why am I letting this jackass hold this lock on my emotions, on myself, on my spirit? Why do I feel shut down when I see him? He's not worth that. He's not worth me giving that kind of power to. And so now when I see him, it is very different. Now when I see him, it's interesting because he tries to flirt. And I just ignore and I just keep walking. I just jump in my taxi and go on my way. He just sees this girl coming out every day, jumping in a taxi and running.
And he could be on that block because he's waiting for you to come outside. You never know.
You'll never have a chance.
Exactly. You're taking your power back.
Yeah. Kind of speaking to the society aspect of it, and we don't have to get too in depth about it, but I just kind of want to know what your personal reactions have been to kind of all these bills that have been passed and that are proposed, and that how this kind of I don't want to say it's a backslide, because like you said, there's been trash humans around forever. It's just the fact that it's kind of being solidified in law. How has that affected you emotionally?
In some ways, I think it's actually hurting the progress that we could be having. So if these conversations were less about, if we are so concerned about children who say that they are trans and they express a need for some kind of gender affirming care, if we are so concerned about those kids, then why are we not then upping the ante on mental health care and all these things that will allow these children to be more clear about where they are in their journeys? And I think that there's a fear if they do that, then more of these kids are going to come out and say, I'm trans or I'm non-binary, because that's what's happening. It's with
because
a little bit of visibility. Yeah,
that's
it's with a little bit of visibility, people start to see examples of themselves and go, oh my God, that's me. I am that. And that's growth. That is great. It blows me away to see young people. When I see some, 12, 13-year-old who is trans and living their life, I'm like, oh my God, if I had been able to be that free at that age, how would things be now? Where would I be in my own life now? I think that it's beautiful. What I'm not a fan of is doctors and well-intentioned parents pushing children into things that they might not be ready for. And I think that's a different conversation than their need or ability to have gender affirming care. I think that I've met a couple of parents of trans kids, and they are beautiful people, and they are excited about their child, being honest with them, and they're excited about trying to find ways to make their child feel affirmed, which is wonderful. But a lot of times the parent only knows what they see too and what they're told. And so they see examples of this, fully transitioned human, and that's what my child wants to be. And it's I want you to sit and talk with your child today and tell your child how beautiful they are today, right now, when your child is crying to you about being in the wrong body or everything being off or everything being wrong. When your child is young enough that they wouldn't even be able to have these conversations in a serious way for another few years, you have to help your child be able to live and survive those years. So this is a great chance for you to then talk to your child about, you know what? This is the body of a trans girl. This is what a trans girl's body looks like. This is what a trans boy's body looks like. This is what a non-binary body looks like. And that's not something that we see every day. It's not something that but you're beautiful and you are perfect and you are great. All those things, we don't get told that. We never get the opportunity to see ourselves as an option that is already beautiful. We only have conversations about what we want to be. And so it's I feel like I would love to see more of a conversation about children having options and young people having options to see wherever your body is, wherever you fall on the spectrum, wherever those things are, all of those things are perfect.
You did an interview for Broadway.com, and one of the quotes that you said was, "It took me a while to find me. I want it to be easier for others, and I think you have to see yourself in order for that to happen."
Exactly.
What are some ways you think someone can see themselves earlier and or accept themselves?
I think seeing examples is certainly one of the ways. And now we are in a time where there are examples out here. Kids have, young people, period. I keep saying kids, but it's also like there are people in college, there are people who are in their 20s, there are people who are in their 30s who have access now to the internet, to social media. If you have questions about yourself, there's lots of examples and things for you to look at and do that exploration.
Yeah. So I guess kind of along those lines, in your own career path, like where you are, and I know you consider yourself a little bit different from some of the people in your family and all of that,
Drastically different from my family.
Well, the family, which I think is natural and normal, even within, anybody's community, it's perfectly. That's why I love that you said that we're all transitioning, because in a way we all hopefully are growing.
Hopefully.
Exactly. Yeah. The ones that are willing and not trash people are growing in some way. And whether that's accepting growth in other areas or within themselves or any of it. But do you think Broadway and kind of mainstream entertainment has made enough strides to be more inclusive? And what would you love to see happen for kind of the LGBTQIA plus community as a whole?
Oh, I love that question because there's layers. If I can keep my train of thought to answer them. So I think that Broadway and the entertainment community sort of at large, I believe that they have taken steps that they deem as progressive without consulting the groups that they are getting the benefit of representing. I think that there's been a lot of, and this is happening like on a regular basis. I think that there are lots of people getting pats on the back for things that are like actually, in some ways, that are actually harming the communities that they're talking about representing. And so I think when people's ego gets out of the way, we can actually take steps forward. It is difficult to grow when you're celebrating inclusion and bringing more people into the room. It does not matter if we are in the room if we have tape over our mouths. It does not matter if we are in the room if there is harmful language and pictures all around us that you're not asking us if we're okay with, and you're watching us feel awful about it. So I think that our business has a long way to go. And I think that there's, of course, people like, well, you got a Tony nomination. How dare you say that? Well, I'm talented.
Yeah. Also, this should have happened a while ago.
And people acknowledge that I'm talented. And is that suddenly, well, how dare you, trans woman, speak back at the industry? It's like, it's not me speaking back. I love our business. My whole heart and soul is in our business. And to the extent that I wish I could break up with it sometimes. I wish I could be like, you know what? I'm over it. I'm out. I can't do that because my heart is in it. I've always wanted to do this since I was a little kid. So because I love our business, I'm really committed to trying to find ways to help us do better, to help us get to a version of what inclusion actually looks like. Because what people don't seem to understand is these conversations about inclusion and diversity. It's like, in my life and in rooms that I build, they already are that. So when we're begging and pleading for inclusion, it's like, inclusion with who? Like, what we're actually having a conversation about here is that white people are being centered, and white cis people and white cis and straight people are being, well, I can't say just straight because in theater it's very gay. So like white people and mostly white gays are like dominating the conversation so much that like there is no space for anybody else. And then when they want to make space or allow space, it's then we brought this, person of color into the room. I'm like, well, white is also a color. So what do you mean person of color? Like even these conversations around POC, someone recently was like, I wish you would stop saying POCs or people of color because white is also a color. And even that phrase centers whiteness as the norm. And I was like, phew, blew my mind. Because I was like, that's actually true. It's like, how can we actually be an equal room when we are still centering one group and making everyone else feel like we are the minority? It's like, if we want to actually create an equitable and diverse room, white people have to also be a part of the percentages that are being tallied out. And so like, but we don't think about it that way because.
Do you feel like I just had a light bulb. So for you, it probably feels like, sure, you can come in, you can sit there, you just can't sit there.
Interesting. For me, it has felt like you can come in. We want to know your thoughts. We love how you speak. We want to hear your thoughts. And now we've heard them. Thank you so much. But wait, but you didn't do anything.
Yeah.
but you didn't do anything.
What's she going to do with them?
And it actually, like, I got emotional. I was crying. And I was really like, I really shared a lot in this conversation. And then you didn't do anything. And I'm telling you that you're stepping on my foot. And then you keep stepping on it. Like, even after the conversation. And then you look at me and go, what can we do for you?
Yeah.
Please stop stepping on my foot. Like, I've been saying it over and over again. And like, you still keep doing it.
It's very rude. You even asked.
Like,
and I gave you an answer.
I even spoke to you. I even told you.
We did this whole thing.
Like, I feel like that's what it actually feels like. It feels a little bit like, and then it becomes, like I said to someone, there are spaces, and look, I don't think this is the case for everyone. I do think that this is like a general wash conversation. I think that there are always exceptions to the rule.
Of course.
But it's one of those things where I was speaking to someone, I was like, I feel like sometimes I enter spaces and people realize that I am inconvenient because they would rather get the benefit of having a human in the room who checks off these boxes, but that has no voice, than having that same human in the room and then me daring to ask questions. Or me daring to go, oh, great. So this piece is about this, this, this. Well, great. Well, I have a question about this. I'm curious about this. I'm an actor who needs to have a POV if I'm going to do the thing. I'm not just here to just say any random words out of the blue. Like, I need to know, why am I saying this? Where are you coming from? What is this about? And, my being in this room, there's instances where like I could be asked to do a project and like I go in, she looks great on the page. Everything's like seeming to be awesome. I'm like, okay, this is cool. Let's just do it. And then afterwards, there's this conversation of, well, so do you think that she's Black? What? I just read her. I just did her. What do you mean? Do I think I'm Black, so she is.
Yeah.
And like, well, but do you think that the way that it's written now, that she speaks the way a Black woman speaks? How does a Black woman speak? I read everything correctly, right? That's what mattered here. Or, or since you did it, we're just very curious. Is she trans? I'm playing a character. You're the one who wrote it.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
I don't know. I mean, like, I'm not adding that to her if I don't think that she is. On this page, she's talking about having a child. So I dare say she's not a trans woman.
Yeah.
I say that this character is a woman who is not trans. And yet, here I am, Trans L. Morgan, playing this role. And so now you're wondering, oh, well, so because you're doing it, does that mean that she's trans? No, it doesn't mean that she's trans because I'm playing it, because I'm telling the story. Did you believe the story? Yeah. So then she's not. Like, I don't need to. And I think it's interesting because there's so many larger conversations happening. And like, I think no group, no matter who you are, no group, we all hold multitudes. No one needs to be we don't do anyone any service by diminishing their experience to one adjective, to one trait that they hold. We really erase their humanity by doing that. And so I would love to be in a place where my humanity is not erased in a room because you're only choosing to focus on the fact that I, as a human, am a trans woman. No matter what it is on the page. If I read Still Magnolias, they're not suddenly trans because I'm there.
This is blowing my mind because it's like, in what world would, Jake Gyllenhaal be reading for Brokeback Mountain and they'd be like, so do you think he's gay? Like, what? Like,
he just spit on his hands.
He is in love with a man. I don't know. Did you not write this? Did you bring it from somewhere else? Like, is this a rhetorical question? Am I not playing him gay enough?
It's real. Well, that's the thing. It becomes, I love that you said that, because then it becomes, oh, well, if she is somehow then trans, so am I supposed to really trans her up? What does that mean? Like, what does that look like to you? Because I'm actually a bit afraid of what that means to you.
Yeah, now I'm scared.
I mean, I've had friends who have been on episodics. I have a friend who was cast as a role that was a trans woman on an episodic. And there was a scene in a taxi cab where the driver looks at her in the rearview mirror and I guess clocks her. So I guess realizes that she's trans. And like, they said to my friend, they were like, okay, well, we're having trouble believing that she's going to see it when she looks in the rearview mirror. So we need to figure out a way to make this work. And then the makeup person proceeds to come in and adds facial hair to my friend. And my friend is like mortified, number one. Like, you basically are like turning me into like a science project in this scene for somehow, how do we make her look different? You're doing something that like so many people are very dysphoric about or feel uncomfortable with. And like, there's also this world where like, yes, that is offensive and crazy. There's also this world where if that's what you wanted in this scene was for there to be someone who is femme of center, who has facial hair, who is sitting in the taxi and the driver looks at them and is like wondering what's going on. That's a different story. And for all intents purposes, that person who is feminine of center might still be a trans woman. But there is this idea of like, ooh, but when we see that beard on that makeup face, we know you're trans. And it's like, that's what we have to have. We have to have some getcha gotcha in order for people to be interested in different people. And it's like, is that what you mean when you ask if this character is trans? Is the next incarnation of this piece going to be, you're going to ask me to spittle in facial hair on my face? Like, because I'm not like, what you all don't understand, again, doing that erases humanity. Because the reality is, and my friend knew this, the reality is in that taxi cab scene, she could have been who she is every day. And that person could have looked in that rearview mirror and felt something a little different and been like, are you trans? That is real. That happens. That happens when I'm standing in line at Macy's and some man is eyeing me down, has been walking around the store, trying to make a pass, flirting, making eyes at me, and we're standing in line. I have not once entertained this man because honestly, he didn't have a chance. I've said before, a girl has needs. If he did, he would have gotten it, but didn't have a chance. But as we're standing in line, something tips him off. And I see when he realizes that I'm trans, because I see him get violently angry in line, starts cursing, throws his stuff down and walks out of the line. And I'm like, see, this is the problem. I didn't do anything. I've just been trying to get a dress here at Macy's. I've been walking here getting a dress at Macy's. What you should have been doing was helping the girl that you were with in this section get the dress she needed to get. Instead, you were in my face.
He went through a whole journey with himself. Like he had a whole argument with his own self for no reason.
And those are the people that will be like, oh, she's out here trying to fool people. Who am I fooling? I never spoke to you.
Yeah.
I tried not even to make eye contact with you because I felt you looking down my throat. You kept trying to say, hey, Ma, what's up? Hey, you don't want to talk to me? You don't want to talk? No, I don't want to talk to you. I'm here getting a dress. Leave me alone. Why are you in the women's section?
To be fair, there is a group of men out there that do this to all women in a way.
Absolutely.
Of like,
absolutely.
Hey girl, hey, you like me? I think you're sexy. No, please leave me alone. Oh, fuck you.
You bitch. Yeah, exactly. It's like they immediately turn.
And it's like, you're clearly a bitch if you're not into me. So, and it's like, wow, way to really show the maturity. I'm actually really.
You seem really secure.
Yeah, I'm very validated in my choice right now.
Right. Because had I come to him and been like, oh yeah, I'll talk to you. Here's my number. Do you think that I would be interested in that person who might come out later?
Yeah.
There's nothing attractive about that.
Yeah.
Zero.
So
nothing.
So bizarre.
It's like there's the little like things that people notice. Like if there's a group of guys, if it's a guy and his friends and he flirts with you, he doesn't know. If he's by himself, there's a possibility that he might know and it's fine and you talk and but when there's a group of guys, it's always about that. Masculinity is very fragile. And it's like about that idea of what would my boys think if we know that she is trans. And it's never just as simple. When I say, it's weird because even when I say that, I don't hear anything wrong about that. Like I hear like, what would my boys think if she's trans? Okay, well, she's trans. Like, I mean, what is the big deal? But they hear in their minds, all this other stuff. They hear, oh, well, she used to be this and she was this. And it's like, well, none of you understand her because she was never, actually, if this is a trans woman, she was never a man. She was assigned male at birth. Absolutely. But this is a trans girl.
That to me also is like saying, okay, what about somebody who is gay, but you're like, but they used to be straight before
People
they
do say
came
that.
out.
Yeah.
And it's
People
like,
say that.
I'm sorry, what? Like,
People
so
say
you're
that.
not attracted to them now because they were at one. That's just such a crazy. I'm just
Laura, you just blew my mind.
I
That is totally, yeah.
I mean,
But there's a world where people are even more attracted because of that. There's a world where people are like, because you were not always, comfortable with being there's another story. So now we're interested in that. And actually, you said that it's interesting because now I'm like, there's a world where like men who are, gay today, who were not identifying as gay before, looking at one right now, become even more attractive because of that.
yeah.
You're like,
Right.
so the girls have a chance.
Yes.
It becomes like you're comfortable with.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
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 And the day that people become comfortable to hit on you in a group with their boys, I think is kind of the ideal in a way that this is.
Things are more normal, quote unquote, at that point.
Yeah. And nothing's ever really normal, but it's at least that very sensitive masculinity that we can somehow, I don't know, fix it. I don't know how, but
it's so exhausting because what they don't realize is the guy that is already comfortable in his masculinity and who doesn't care is so much more attractive.
So hot.
And will literally get so much more play. They don't get this like false performative masculinity is so disgusting.
It is. I felt like for a little
It's a huge
while
turnoff.
there when we were really getting into like metro guys that we were on the track. We were getting there. And then it was like skinny jeans were out and then we lost it. I don't know what happened, but it's just such a bizarre, I guess, it's just the psychology of people. And I guess kind of coming to terms with what they were taught, the little labels of everything, and how does that change their identity, how they think of themselves, and people
That's ego.
Yeah, people do
what
not
is
like
this?
to
If I
ask
like this
that.
person, what does this say about me?
Yeah.
And there's nuance to that because quite frankly, you could like this person and you would think it's this. I might think it's something else when you like that person.
Mm-hmm.
But that's my opinion. That's not even
Subjective.
about you.
Yeah.
It's like, that's why. I mean, there's a world where I wish we could just sort of trash all the labels and throw them out because at the end of the day, we're all animals. And so like, it's like if we would actually just lean into that, we might all be a whole lot happier.
Yes.
Agreed.
We would just do
1,000%.
what we want to do, see who we want to see, play how we want to play, and nobody's giving like, oh, well, if I see you, then I'm this. I'll follow. It's like, no, we are all animals. Who cares about all this? If I'm attracted to you, we're going to play. Like, that's all this matters. Like, I don't care what you are. That's not my business.
Well, this has been absolutely amazing. And we definitely don't want to take up any more of your afternoon because we know you either got to go out there and enjoy it and have that cocktail or hit the payment, whichever one, this day, wherever it takes you. But we do have a tradition on this show before we can let you go. And that's the question of the day. And we like to kind of do this because sometimes we talk about a lot of intense stuff. And this is just kind of like fun. So would you, L. Morgan Lee, rather have whatever you're thinking appear above your head for everyone to see or have absolutely everything you do live streamed for anyone to see? Good luck.
Ooh. Oh, God, the trouble I would get into. I would rather have the bubble above my head because at least that would only be for the people who are in the room with me.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I could see that.
I don't like the idea of my thoughts being live streamed.
Oh, it would just be everything you do, not your thoughts.
Oh, interesting.
So you
everything
can control
I do.
what you're
Everything
doing.
you do. So
but
like,
then
you're
watched.
But
cooking
then that
breakfast,
still
you're going to audition.
Yeah, see, it's not the breakfast and the audition that I'd be nervous about. It's all the other stuff.
Yeah.
Private conversation.
After hours.
And then she left her apartment at 11:30. Like, oh my God. Don't see that. Turn it off. Yeah, I have not signed up for a reality TV show. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even those are edited. So,
that's true.
it would be you, if you had chosen the heels, falling and rolling down the red carpet from every angle. So,
I think I'd rather the bubble with my thoughts being seen in the room with me, because that might also, for me, that might also help me sometimes. I can be a little shy. And so I think if my thoughts were seen, people would realize, oh, that's who she is. Okay.
probably
I wonder
beautiful.
what goes on in your brain.
I would say the things that happen in my brain are, writers could be writing TV shows about that right now.
Yeah. This could be an opportunity, actually.
Right, I would think it'd be helpful.
Yeah, if Shonda could see the bubble right across.
People just start stealing your thoughts, though.
That would be awful. Wow.
Well, we can't tell you enough how grateful we are for your time today. And it has just been, I think it's been a very important conversation. But I also think that, I've known you for a long time, but I definitely learned a lot about where you are now as opposed to all those years ago when we first met. And it's just, you're such a beautiful human. And we're so grateful that you came on Next Page today.
Yeah.
Oh my God. No, thank you. This was fun.
It was. It was really fun. We laughed a lot. And
we did.
Sometimes that does not happen on here.
No, it gets very serious.
So we really, can't thank you enough. And I really loved meeting you. And I hope that we can get together in New York sometime. So this was so much fun. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and just have a wonderful rest of your day.
You too.
So what did you think?
Well, I want to know what you thought, because I've known her for years, but I want to know what you thought.
Well, for one, I'm super jealous that you've known her for years, because she's so awesome and just so fun. And I like that she, even with all these heavy topics and just the intensity of everything that's going on with the trans community and what they're going through, that she brings some levity and some perspective, that it's still this is important and we need to talk about this, but a lot of it really is much simpler than we need to make it. That at the end of the day, this is all about just acceptance and
100%
and loving each other and not dictating what's right and what's wrong about something that isn't harmful to anybody. It's infuriating to me that there are people out there that try to make it otherwise.
And Elle Morgan, I love that you said that, Laura, because she does bring a little bit of humor to all of this too. And she looks at it as I don't know, her chill vibe just kind of permeates through the airwaves. I mean, she's just a very, very laid back. She said, didn't she say in the beginning of the interview, she said, I'm just a boring girl.
I'm just a boring girl.
I'm just a boring girl. But she's not boring at all.
She's not boring at all. That's what's so funny. But I think she just means that she's not flashy. She's not in your face. She's not trying to perform. I think she spent so much of her life performing in everyday life to pretend to be
when she
somebody.
said that really gave me the chills when she said that she had been performing as a man for all those years, or a boy, or what she thought that was, and she was only operating at 20%. She is the real deal, and I love that her first Broadway show, she won she nominated for a Tony Award, and she won the nomination.
I love that I love that she brought up that she was like, "Yeah, no, I got that Tony nomination because I'm talented." Yeah. I'm good at this. And it's yes, queen. And I remember even telling Leia about, we were going through her Wikipedia page together. And she was like, she's the first? You'd think the Tony Awards, the Tonys would be all over this, way
you would
sooner.
think. No, the Tony Awards are listen, we love the Tony Awards. We respect the Tony Awards, but the Tony Awards have a lot of growing to do. Yes, we want a Tony Award. We would love a Tony Award, but we still have a lot of work to do. And I think that I don't know. I just was very touched by her humility. And a lot of people don't know this, but she is a phenomenal photographer. I mean, phenomenal.
You go on her Instagram, she's got some of those up there, and she's very good.
It's called Blue Photography. And I'll tell you, it is, every time I did a shoot with her, I always came out with these pictures that this should be in a magazine. I mean, it's just, her eye is so, but I am so happy that she just did her solo show, and I heard it went very, very well. But I'm so glad we got to have her on the podcast today.
I felt honored to be speaking with her at all. And it was, I think
she's so cool.
It helped that you were here and y'all have that relationship because it felt like we were old friends, and I liked it.
It did.
It was a special experience for me. Just in
general.
Yay! So, thank you.
We love. Well, I also loved her answer to the question. But let me ask you the question of the day: would you rather have whatever you are thinking to appear above your head for everyone to see, or have absolutely everything you do live stream for anyone to see?
I would have to go with the bubble. I don't want it. Like, let's be clear, because we talked about this. Like, I don't want people reading my thoughts. And I'm sure it'll be something absurd, but somebody could brush it off as like, oh, that was just that one crazy thought she had or whatever. All the time, like when I'm showering, like, come on. Let's get out of my life a little bit. I need some privacy. And
it's very like Truman. Would you want to be in the Truman Show, or would you?
In no way.
I agree with you that I would want the bubble. I would not want everything I do to be on display. I'd rather have people know how I really feel about them.
Yeah. I'm not even going through like an altruistic or like, oh, this is a more positive thing. Like, I just feel like I'd be horrified if everybody watched every single thing. Like, how many times I would,
because some stuff should be private. All these reality shows in everybody's faces.
I don't get it.
But we cannot thank L. Morgan Lee for coming on the program enough, and all of her. She's such an incredible actor and just a wonderful human all around.
Yeah, just a beautiful soul.
She can sing her face off.
Yeah, beautiful soul. I had a great time. Thank you so much, L. Morgan Lee, and I hope we do get together and have a brunch, and I get to hear y'all sing.
We will.
Yes,
we will.
It's going to happen. Put it out there.
Always great to see you.
Always. Love you. Bye.
Love you too. Bye.